In recent years, issues regarding football club ownership in England have taken centre stage. In this documentary, we'll look at 3 different clubs with different ownership models: fan-owned, externally owned and the hybrid model.
To get a deeper insight into the ownership models and the financial side, we'll be speaking to 3 representatives of each ownership model and also a financial football expert.
Chester is a beautiful city located in the northwest of England. Steeped in history, its Roman heritage is evident in the city walls that surround the city centre. Present in the city are many Tudor-style buildings, showcasing the prestige the city carries. As you make your way through the city centre, you can observe the iconic Eastgate clock, Chester's almost 1,000-year-old cathedral, as well as the River Dee, providing a view to die for and a lovely walk on a sunny day. Not only does Chester embody British history, but the city also boasts a vibrant modern culture, with lively markets, enticing restaurants and a refreshing art scene. It's a city where past meets present. One of the pillars of this wonderful city is its football club, Chester FC. The club ply their trade in the Vanarama National League North, playing their home games at the Leap 76 Stadium. The club carries on the legacy of football in the city, with passionate supporters and a commitment to grassroots football.
Chester FC are a club who have had their fair share of financial difficulties over the years. In 2010, the club were liquidated under controversial owner Stephen Vaughan. Since then, City Fans United has been set up as the club looked to be reborn as a Phoenix club.
Due to the hard work and support of the fans, Chester FC has been reborn from the ashes. For just £2 a month, fans can part-own the club, making decisions on how it's run.
A man who has seen it all at the club is the club historian Chas Sumner. If there's anything to find out about Chester FC, Chas is the man to ask. We sat down with the man himself to discuss how the Phoenix Club came to be and the creation of City Fans United, as well as the club's fan ownership model and the ins and outs of how it operates.
I'd say it was crucial. I think with having City Fans United, when the club was folding, I think people could see that there was a future for the club. So, there was a smooth, well, I wouldn't say a smooth path, but there was a path through to the future for the club.
Fan-owned clubs are a rarity in football, so why is that? We asked Chas why he thinks the fan-owned model is unique to other models of ownership.
I think it's a lot more transparent, and I think that the supporters have a better idea of what's going on. There's not so much secret these days.
The club has to compete with a multitude of clubs backed by wealthy owners. Does this lack of resource limit the progression of a fan-owned club?
Well, I think you can go up the pyramid. I think Exeter City are a good example of a club that have succeeded in this. There's no doubt that it is difficult, but it's fan-owned. That's not to say that we don't welcome investors at all. Other people can come in, but I think you need the structure of a fan-owned model to bring people in.
With the stability Chester has found adopting a fan-owned model, does Chas think more clubs will follow suit?
I'd like to think that they would. It would bring a more level playing field. I think certainly at this lower level, I think we should it should be a fan-owned base. By all means have investors, but under the umbrella of fan-owned.
To gain an even greater understanding of the different ownership models in football, we spoke with football finance expert Paul Clark, who gave us his thoughts on fan-owned clubs.
So, obviously, close to home in terms of Chester FC, they've been they're a start-up Phoenix club, and their ethos is kind of fan-owned. So the alternatives to that is what was before, really. So they were previously owned by sort of a particularly unscrupulous owner who run the club into the ground and did so with a number of other clubs. So the fans of Chester want a football club, and the good thing about having a fan-owned club is that it kind of protects them against that happening, really. So I think the benefits are, obviously, you can keep owners on the kind of straight and narrow, really. The drawbacks are, obviously, the financial is competing. So in different levels, Chester, I think they've hit a ceiling in terms of where they can go from here. They need some sort of extra funding to make them go to the next level. but it would be kind of noble if they could get through the kind of the leagues under a fan-owned model, really. So I think it does seem to be like a reset, but I think it's difficult in this day and age, especially at Premier League level, to be a fan and kind of run a club.
Similarly to Chester, we visited another historic city in York. Based in North Yorkshire, York is home to some of the most famous works of architecture in the country. This includes the long and impressive city walls, its famous minster and the National Railway Museum. It is a tourist hotspot given its Viking heritage, as well as York Castle, a display of the city's cultural history.
In June 2023, Matthew and Julianne Ugler acquired a majority shareholding in York City via their company 394 Sports. The pair currently own 75% of the club, with the other 25% being owned by the Supporters Trust, which was formed in February 2002.
The Supporters Trust was formed after Douglas Craig, the former chairman, sold the club to John Batchelor. John Batchelor then, within 12 months, put the club into administration.
The Minstermen were founded in 1908 and currently find themselves in the 5th tier of English football, the Vanarama National League. The team play their home games at the Liner Community Stadium, a new stadium and leisure complex located on the outskirts of the city centre. A year ago, the team finally won promotion back to the National League after languishing for a number of years in the National League North. The team's first season back in the top division of the non-league pyramid proved to be a challenging one, with the team narrowly avoiding relegation after lots of investment. We spoke to the chairman of the York City Supporters Trust and York City co-owner, Seth Sowerby, to find out more about the club's hybrid ownership model.
We're all part of the same project, the football stranger, and the fans, the customers, whether it be people who are just coming through the turnstile once in a while, or season ticket holders, or local business people who are sponsoring the club. Everybody's a fan, and that includes the new owners. So, codependent isn't the word I'd put it. We're all on the journey together. Just some people have different roles.
After previously having trouble with external ownership in the past after going into administration in the early 2000s, York City Supporters Trust have decided to invite external capital in once again. We asked Seth why the club have opted to do this, as it has proven risky for the club in the past.
The trust, as I recall, they operated the club from around 2003-2006. 2006 it became clear that football's hard to be sustainable without investment, and at that point had taken a loan from one of the club's directors, who was appointed by the Supporters Trust at that point. And so it just became, at that point, there was a motion put to the trust members as to whether to give that board member 75% of the club on the basis of not paying back the loan and the guarantee of future investment. The members at that point voted yes. I mean, it's very hard to be sustainable in football, particularly without major investment first to get the other income streams to be viable long term.
The National League is a financial minefield with owners bankrolling clubs left, right and centre. To compete, is some form of external backing necessary?
We would struggle to run it sustainably without major investment, and that investment has to come from somewhere. There's a lot we could do to increase our income streams outside of match day. But you have to invest to get those income streams, and it's.
Full ownership between fans and private business people relies on good working relations and communication to work. So, we asked Seth if the Supporters Trust maintains a good relationship with the majority shareholders.
I would say that the Trust's influence within the club actually has grown in the last 2 years. Obviously 2.5 years ago, the club bought back the club from the owner who'd been, the director I mentioned, who'd been owning the club for quite a long time, found another investor that we won't go into too much. Didn't work out. And then partnered with the Matt and Julianne Ugler last year. The influence isn't how much we own, it's how we can impact the club, how we can partner with them, how we can work with them. Whether we're at 51% or 75%, we still get a minimum of 2 directors on the club board who are there to influence, give fan input, and provide oversight over the club.
Due to the fact most clubs at this level see success off the back of large monetary investments from owners, is there a ceiling to the hybrid model that limits York's ability for its private owners to invest fully, as they would if they owned 100% of the club?
I don't think the limitations on York are not from the ownership model. I mean, with any club, it's all about how much money you can get in and how wisely you spend it. We're all, if we were in the centre of Manchester or central London, there'd be many more people we'd get through the door, and therefore more money. But no, I don't think the structure is what limits its ambition and practicality.
The higher up the pyramid a club finds itself, the need for more money pumped in usually increases because of the ever-increasing costs of football at the highest level. If York were to climb the ladder of the EFL in the future, would their model need to be looked at to increase the private capital funding the club?
I think for York, the current model is the right one. I think our fans are very comfortable with this model in terms of not repeating mistakes of the past, not facing the financial issues and going in administration, because we know we can be observing what's happening at the club. I think it's the best model for us.
So, the hybrid ownership model clearly has its positives and drawbacks, but does Paul Clark think it can be useful to certain clubs in the modern game?
I suppose that particular model harks to Germany, where they have the 51 plus sort of ownership, really. So no one can own more than 51% of the club, really, because obviously that's another way of keeping, owners on the straight and narrow, really, in terms of ownership, really. So that may be the model that football clubs in this country could pursue. But I don't think it will at the moment. Obviously, with clubs being owned by Qatari states and Saudi Arabia and Emirates or what have you, that particular sort of boat has kind of sailed, really.
Lastly, we visited Oldham. Located in Greater Manchester, this historic town is famed for its influence in the textiles industry during the Industrial Revolution. A backbone of its community is Oldham Athletic Football Club. The club find themselves in non-league football for the first time in its history, after a period of mismanagement. The club are now targeting a return to the EFL to secure the club's first promotion since the Latics progressed to the Premier League in 1991.
Oldham Athletic were formerly a Premier League club, but have recently plummeted down the divisions after falling on hard times. Frank Rothwell has acquired custody of the club after a difficult period under the previous ownership, with the club now playing National League football. I spoke to Director of the Supporters Foundation, Matt Dean, who told us about the challenges of recent years and what the future might look like for the Latics.
I mean, in our history at the club, we've only ever had external ownership. We've only ever had private owners of the club, so we don't have anything to compare it to directly. What we can say is that the club nearly went bust twice with private investors running the club, private businesses, private people, to the exclusion of the fans, keeping fans out of the loop when it comes to the relevant information. So I think there are pros and cons. I don't think that with the way that the game is set up currently in terms of the amount of money that is needed, that it would be particularly easy or indeed doable for most clubs to generate enough money just through their fan base to compete. However, I believe that is probably more of an indictment against the game rather than against fan ownership. So in the current setup, I believe you probably need private investment in order to compete, but I would like to see less emphasis on that and less need for that across the game. And as far as we're concerned as a football club, as far as Oldham Athletic are concerned, I do not want us to be completely reliant on one source of income from one owner or one group or whatever to keep our club financially viable, because we've seen in the past that when that funding is withdrawn or the club is mismanaged by that particular person or group of people, that the club is extremely vulnerable.
Oldham Athletic possess a large fan base for the level they play at, but the fans have no say in how their club is run due to full external ownership. Does Matt feel uncertain about this situation?
100%. I feel uncertain about the future of football. I feel uncertain about the future of our football club, and that is with what is widely regarded as a positive change in our ownership. We have a local family, a local business running our club, who've very successful business, but in the past, under the previous owners, we had a say in getting them out of the football club, but we didn't have a say in who came in. We didn't have a serious say. The thing is that you can get a fan representative on the board, and we had a fan representative on the board. Oldham Athletic Supporters Foundation has a seat on the board. We've currently chosen not to take that seat because we feel that whoever it is who is put in that position is directly in conflict straight away. As a director of both organisations, they have to represent the interests of both organisations. That in itself just makes it impossible. It makes it null and void. The club might turn around and say, well, you've got a voice on the board, but you choose not to use it. We've been down that road before, and it's only been, it's a very, very enviable position for anybody who takes that seat on the board. What we want as an organisation is for, in the future, whenever there is a serious issues regarding the football club, regarding the safety of the football club, the financial health of the football club, serious decisions being made about it, that we're involved, and that includes a change in ownership. We weren't involved in that process officially, despite the huge efforts that the fan base went to oust the previous owners by getting organised and by really, really working hard through fan media channels, through protest groups, through boycotts. We really pulled our finger out, and we really expressed ourselves clearly to the previous ownership that we wanted them to go, but we had no involvement in the process of who came in.
With hard times hitting Oldham several times in the past, there always seems to be a feeling amongst the Latics faithful that those times have potential to return at any point.
We've got to expect that there will be a dark day at some point in the future, and that the club is going to turn to its fans. It always does. It's always the fans who have to pick up the pieces. And in the past, as a fan base and as a foundation or as a trust, we weren't ready. We can't allow that to happen again. We've always got to be preparing for the worst and trying to build the best football club we can and the best organisation we can to support the football club in the good times, with an eye on things turning sour or difficult or whatever at some point in the future.
Oldham now find themselves in a situation where they have the biggest fan base in the league, as well as a very wealthy financial custodian. So does this give them an advantage over other clubs at this level?
I think there are different tiers of that kind of backing. I mean, look at Wrexham, who just blew everybody out of the water in terms of their budget. Stockport, similar. Those are rare cases, and they were. Wrexham happened quite quickly, I guess, in terms of the investment and the success. Stockport took a lot longer. Chesterfield have got a lot more fan ownership involved. And they've done it eventually after considerable amount of time down at this level. It gives you some advantage in terms of the financial clout, but at the same time, when you're a club as big as Oldham, you have a lot more overheads, you've got a bigger stadium, expectations are greater, and a lot more money is required to put into the football club. I don't think at this stage it gives us an advantage, because there are smaller clubs, and I say that with all greatest respect, but they're just smaller. They're smaller in terms of their history, in terms of their fan base, in terms of their budget and all that kind of stuff, stadia and everything. But they're better ran than we are. They have an upwards momentum that we don't have yet. They've been, a lot of the clubs that are in this division are playing at the highest level that they've ever played at, and they're coming off the back of promotions and really positive momentum. We've been coming downhill for such a long time that it's really hard to turn that ship around. So on paper, it gives you a big advantage, but in reality, if you don't have the right people in place, spending the money wisely, and to be fair, over the last couple of seasons, in this division, we haven't done that. We haven't spent the money wisely. Our first manager, John Sheridan at the time, moved on. Then David Unsworth came in. He was moved on. Now we've got Mickey Mellon. So we've got to prove that we're big at this level, and that we can do what is required. But there's absolutely no guarantee, just because of the size and because of the relative backing that the club has.
Football finance expert Paul Clark talked to us in further detail about the ins and outs of external ownership in football, including its pros and cons.
I don't think there's anything wrong with your club being owned by a major benefactor. The Premier League is a financial, it's a money-making machine, really. So I'd be naive to say I'd want my club to be owned by a local businessman. If there was one, that's great. What I want my club to be run as an Everton fan is to be run properly, not being hit with financial fair play to compete, not necessarily to buy the best players going, but just to buy a number of players, and we don't have to sell at the end of the year, really. That would be an externally owned an owner who knows how to run a football club. If they're a businessman and they want to make money out of Everton, that's good, as long as they started putting money onto the pitch and doing it in the right way. We've seen at lower league levels, people coming in and ruining clubs. Chester FC is one example. Bury, it happens at all levels, but there is good and bad. So I think there's nothing against someone owning your club, but it's whether they've got the right interests, really.
So after analysing the strengths and weaknesses of the full fan ownership model of Chester, the partly fan-owned hybrid model at York, and the fully external ownership at Oldham, does Paul see a clear superior model of ownership?
I think all of them work, but I just think, who's kind of controlling who, really. So the best model is the one that runs the club well, really. So it doesn't kind of load your club with debt, doesn't kind of run you into kind of financial fair play issues, makes your team competitive, and works quite well, obviously, with the fans, really. Understands the history of the club, which is important, really. Lower down the leagues, you get, obviously, your clubs which are particularly well run. I know Wrexham are run well by two Hollywood superstars. So that's kind of a nice story. They seem to be in it for the right reasons. Then they're obviously making they've got a bit of profile with their careers anyway, but they've got a bit of profile over here in terms of the TV stuff they do for Disney and obviously the football club as well. So yeah, I would say kind of just good ownership, really. So whether it's kind of fan owned, I think the fan owned element, as I said before, sometimes I think it always seems to be a reset, really. So I think it's a noble thing to have, but I think there's only so far that subscriptions will get you, really, especially in this day and age, because the financial sides of football, whatever level you're at, you're always competing against someone who's come in and invested in a club and want to take them out of that division, whether it's in the Premier, whether it's in the Championship or whether it's in the Premier League, they want to kind of go into the Champions League, or whether it's in the national leagues, or even as far down as the kind of Northern Premier League, Northwest Counties League. There's always someone who's thinking, I want to move this club up and I'll throw the equivalent of what I need to spend at this level, really.
So after looking at three very different football clubs with their own history and challenges, it's difficult to say which model is best for controlling a football club. The hybrid and fan-owned model gives more power to supporters, but these are often dwarfed financially by the bigger externally backed clubs. This makes it harder for the smaller, less wealthy clubs to make it up the football pyramid.
However, if a club owner doesn't invest in a football club properly, this could run the club into the ground. Each football club has their own model specifically tailored to their specific needs.